All right, we're talking Power Automate today. If you have Office 365 and you're looking to automate some of the things that you do, we're going to walk you through some of the basics today. Hey everyone, my name is Mitch, and like I said, I wanted to walk through some of the basics of Power Automate today. What we're going to do today is walk through a template that you can use, just some way to really easily get started with a new flow. And then we're going to walk through a custom built one that fulfills a scenario that we came up with for reporting bugs for a website. So one thing to note, just one of the benefits of Power Automate right off the gate is that it's all in your Office 365 tenant, and all the authentication and all the tools that it can talk to, it's very easy to integrate with all of them because it uses the same authentication, and you can talk to from SharePoint to Planner to Lists to Teams and all those different tools without having to make a bunch of different connections manually. It's all integrated into one. As we're walking through these examples today, maybe just think through different things that you do over the course of your day and think maybe Power Automate can connect those two things together and help me out and make it so I don't have to do that anymore. And before we get started, if you end up liking this video, feel free to hit that thumbs up button down there. It helps a lot with our analytics and showing this video to more that it might be helpful to. So we really appreciate that. Also, subscribe if you want to see other similar content. Okay, one more thing before we dig in. I wanted to say this tool is great, but it's not perfect. There's a thing where Microsoft owns this whole suite of tools, right? And they all work well together, and it's hard to nail each one of them. Power Automate is maybe a little bit lacking there, and you might run into some weird issues with text boxes and you can't see all the options that you need and you're trying to scroll around and maybe get frustrated. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that we know, and really this is meant to just focus on some of the basics, getting you started and hopefully inspiring you to start thinking about automation and improving your workday by automating the things that you can. So let's go. So to get started, we're going to try out a flow that is created from a template, just because it's easier than creating one from scratch and kind of shows you all the pieces put together quickly. So I'm going to go in my Power Automate over to Create. And then it gives you quite a few different options here. You can see along the top, these are all the start from blank options. But like we said, we're going to create one from a template. So I think I'm going to pick this one here. So when a file is added to SharePoint, so this is good for if, say you have a policy or approval process where once you get a document done, it needs to go through a formal process and you need to have someone approve it in order to say it's ready for public or whatever avenue you need to take your document. So what I'm going to do is click this and say, when I upload a file to SharePoint, it's going to kick off this approval process. So as you see here, there's a couple different things that this flow will connect to. And all of these things are different connectors for data for what you want this flow to interact with. So each one of these has its own permissions, and you need to grant permissions to each one. So what we're going to do is go down the list and make sure all of these things are authenticated. Okay, all green check marks, ready to go. So I'll click continue. So it is asking me what site I want to monitor. So I have just this SPFX testing site that I was using, and then a list to monitor. There's a documents library here, and then folder to monitor for new files. We're going to leave that blank just because I want it to for any folder that I upload to. And then I want to send an approval to Matt Dressel. He's our approver of things. So we'll hit create. Just like that, we created a flow. why don't we take a look at what's actually going on behind the scenes here so that we can understand the flow structure a little bit. So I'm going to click Edit, and it's loading up the flow here. So when a file is created, we can see that this one got filled with the settings that we filled out. Get my profile, and then create an approval. So this is all the details that will be sent in the approval to the approver. And you can just take a look quick at these different fields. So the title is going to be Review New SharePoint File. You can customize this to say New Standard of Procedure Uploaded, please review. And it adds a link to the item and a description. And then we have an apply to each. So for each of these approvers, we're going to post an adaptive card in a chat or channel. So basically this will throw a card in a Teams chat and say, hey, you should check this out. It needs to be approved. And yeah, take a look. So then we have an apply to each. And this is going to post an adaptive card in a chat or channel. This is just essentially a smart card that will get displayed in, looks like Chat with Flowbot is where it will be displayed. And the approver is going to get a card in there that says, hey, here's the details, approve or deny. And then we have a wait for approval, and it gives the ID for the approval there. So it just needs to know what approval to wait for. And then based on that, it's obviously flowing down into some complexity here, but after it gets approval, then send me a message that says, hey, your document was approved. And if it was rejected, do the same, but for rejection. So this also has another branch here, which we can maybe dig into in a later video, but essentially this is an action for what happens if some part of this fails and it doesn't create the approval, and what happens then. It should notify someone and tell someone, hey, this didn't work, and you should get some eyes on it and make sure to correct whatever is going wrong there. So that's a brief overview of that template. Obviously, it's helpful when you have a template that can produce this level of complexity in just a few seconds and customize it as you need. So now that we created one from a template, I also want to walk you through creating one from scratch. And to do that, we're going to create an automated cloud flow. This is effectively the same, it's going to have the same outcome as we had before of creating a flow that's triggered by someone performing some sort of action. And we're going to name this bug report. And we want the trigger here to be, let's say we have a form that someone finds a bug on a website that you support, and they want to report that to whoever it's important to so that they can go fix it. And we created a form so that someone can do that and collect all the details that is needed to resolve that bug. So we're going to click when a new response is submitted. So anytime someone submits that form, this is going to run. Okay, so it created this essentially blank flow for me that says when a new response is submitted and asks for the form that we want to do. And we have this website bug report form already set up, so we're going to select that. And then what do we want it to do with this information? So I'm going to say, what if we add this to a list that someone manages and can keep track of all the bugs in one place? So let's take a look at how to do that. I'm going to add a new step here and say, I know that I want to create an item in a list, basically. So I'm going to type in list and see what I get. So get all lists, no. Not seeing in here. Sometimes it takes a little bit to find the exact item that you want, but I think this create item will do what we want. So, okay. It's creating an item in a site. I'm going to click here to grab my SPFX testing site, and then it's going to load up the lists that I have. And I've already set up an issue tracker list in Microsoft Lists with the issue tracker template. So it's going to have a bunch of fields that can be used to further flesh out this bug that was reported. Issue tracker. Okay, so now it grabbed all the fields from that list and is saying, what do you want to fill in here? So we at least want a title. And if you look here, this is the dynamic content window, and this is designed to take some sort of content that exists elsewhere in the flow and put it in this step, basically. So if something happens before and you want to use that later, this should show in your dynamic content window here, and you should be able to click on the different fields that you want to use. But notice that all we have right here is when a new response is submitted, all the fields that are available to me are unique identifier of the response. And then it says use get response details action to fetch the content of the form response. So we're dealing with a pretty common scenario in Power Automate here, where all I have right now is I know that a response was submitted and I have the ID of that response. I don't know anything about the response, but I know that something was done. So in order to get what we want about the response, in order to pass it off to the list, we actually need to go get the response first in order to get that data. So it's a little bit not intuitive, but hopefully it's a pattern that exists in multiple places and you can kind of follow it and know how to get the data that you need when you encounter this. So what I'm going to do is look for form, and I'm going to filter for forms. And right here, get response details. This is the one that it said for us to use in order to get the response details. So we know the form is going to be website bug report, response ID. Now we can use this dynamic content window here and say, I have the response ID from this step, and I want to put that in there. So it's going to get that response and get all the details for that response. Let's take a look at what we have now. In the create item, I want to insert a title here, and suddenly I have more information here. So these are all the different fields in that form of how urgent is this, who submitted it, and what problem are they having. So let's take that and insert it into these fields. So title, I'm just going to keep this generic because I imagine someone's going to have to triage this, and most likely the person that submitted the bug isn't going to give a great name for it anyway, so we might as well just have whoever maintains this list maintain this item. So new bug report, just as a placeholder for now. Issue description, we can do describe the problem, and then how urgent is this? Can we do, let's see, what does it come up with here? It's not giving me anything right now. It's one of the things about Power Automate 2 is sometimes things like this happen and it's not super clear why, but we're going to work with what we have here. What I'm going to do is just add some extra content down here that says how urgent, new line, how urgent is this? So it'll essentially give me a description in this item that says, hey, here's the bug I'm having, and here's how urgent it is, all within the description. So you can further customize the who it's assigned to, when it was reported, right? Submission time, so we can throw that one in there. And that's really all there is to getting this item in the list. Obviously, you can customize this to your heart's content, but we're going to keep it simple here. I'm just going to hit save. Okay. One thing to check when you have a flow and you want to make sure everything's good is open this flow checker and make sure there's no errors or warnings showing. Sometimes if you put the wrong type of data in the wrong field or something like that, it'll throw an error and say, hey, this isn't supported, go fix it. And hopefully the error that's there will help you decipher what's going on and what's wrong. But now we can test this. So let's click this test button, and I'm going to say I'm going to manually test this. And this is just a way to get the flow into a state that's saying, hey, I'm ready for something. Go trigger this, and I'll wait, and I'll show you the results when you submit the form. So I'm going to go over to my form here, and I'm going to try to submit one. So I'm going to say I have a bug. It's non-blocking, but it should be fixed. So maybe there's just an annoyance where the menu takes a long time to close. And it should be pretty quick because we don't want anything on the screen for too long on our website that should be opening and closing easily. And this is taking too long. So I'm going to submit that. Thanks, your response was submitted. I'm going to go back over to the flow. And it says your flow ran successfully. So you can walk through the different steps and you can see, okay, we had a form ID. Here's the response details that it went and got, and then create an item. So here's all the different fields that it filled out in the list. So let's verify that really quick. And I'm going to go to this list and hit refresh. And hey, look at that new bug report. Menu takes a long time to close. It's non-blocking, but should be fixed. So whoever's managing this list can then go in here and triage it basically. So let's say I want to add a description to this, and I'm going to name it menu close time. And I'm going to assign it to myself. So obviously this is just Microsoft List, so it's not like I have a task on a planner board or anything, but you can also connect to things like that, like Planner. If you want to create an actionable item, instead of down here where we should do create an item in SharePoint, go create an item in Planner for someone to go fix, basically. So we can see that it was created successfully, assigned to me, and from there we can kind of just imagine what it would look like to have this bug report form published somewhere for someone to go input their feedback or any issues that they see, and it automatically fill up this list for us to take action on over time. So that's the gist of Microsoft Power Automate. And as you can imagine, there's lots of possibilities here for basically automating your day. And if we want to look into some of those other options, even if I go to this, just the automated cloud vault, one of 5 options, there's so many different possibilities here of what can trigger a flow and what you can automate. So if you want kind of more ideas, you're welcome to browse this templates list. It is good for inspiration and giving you ideas of what all this is capable of. I just noticed there's a remote work one. So let's say post a message in Teams when a planner task is completed. So let's say I got something done and I want to let people know, and we can set that up on a planner board and have it automatically post to a team and say, hey, this task was completed. And then everyone's in a loop and everyone knows, and I don't have to manually go tell everyone, hey, this thing is done. So hopefully that's a good brief look at Power Automate. I encourage you to go in, try stuff out, and look at any opportunity throughout your day for different processes that you're used to doing that maybe Power Automate can help with. So hopefully that was helpful, and if you want any more information about Power Automate, feel free to check out our channel for more videos that maybe dig into a little bit more complex topics. And also wanted to make note that we do have a learning center on our website that is a good place for you to check out and learn more about all these tools in one place. And if you find yourself needing extra help, you're welcome to leave a comment below with any questions, but sometimes hands-on help is more helpful. And so what we do is once a month hold office hours, and you can come in and ask questions, and we're going to post links to that in the description below so that you can learn more if you want. And I think that's all we have for today. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.